We've been listening to a lot of Christmas music around here.
Great. We've been doing a lot of Christmas events at church.
We're doing nothing. We're not celebrating this year.
Today we're going to be talking about Christmas and a little bit about a Christian perspective and just kind of see where the conversation goes. Similar to our Halloween episode, at the church we put out like a guide for parents for Christmas time. We're just calling it Parenting Through Christmas. So we'll go through some of that, but I think we can also just use this as a kind of a platform for us to talk about a few different subjects that may come up as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. Have you released that to the congregation yet?
Yes, we gave it out like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Cool.
And the children's director at Harvest, she and I kind of collaborate on it. So she sent me like several articles that she felt like were really good. And then I read through those and then I typed up the actual guide and then just gave it over to her to see if she had any suggestions to change it. And she didn't because it was perfect. And then
Nice.
then we print it out and she hands it out to the kids and their parents as they pick them up from class.
That's
Well, on that
smart.
note, did she have suggestions for the Halloween one? Or was that also perfect?
There were a few things I think as far as wording or things that could be like combined that she had like suggestions on. Like I think this could fit under here better, and it wouldn't be like its own point or whatever. And so with both of them, I'm making the main draft and then kind of collaborating with her for the final.
Okay.
That's cool.
I was just asking because, not to bury the lead here, but I would assume that it's much easier to know how to deal with Christmas as Christians than Halloween.
Yeah, I think so. And I was definitely a lot, like she was the one who said, hey, we need to do that guide for Christmas. And I was very passionate about putting together the one for Halloween and felt like it was something really necessary. And then this one, she was like kind of reminding me and I was like, okay, yeah, like let me think about what I would want to include. And, but once we kind of got it going, I really felt good about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. So first, I do periodically have people ask me about like, does Christmas have pagan roots and why do we celebrate on the 25th? Isn't that because it's a pagan holiday? I actually had a student ask me about that on Wednesday and was like really like kind of concerned. Like somebody was telling me about this. Like, if somebody asks you that, what do you guys say to that?
I feel like this is another one of those things that we're all going to kind of be on the same page about.
That's okay.
Which is that, why is that a bad thing? That the timing selected happens to correspond with what was once a pagan day, and we've redeemed it into something non-pagan.
Good.
Yeah, and then the thing that I think about from...
That's all I would say. That's the only thing I would say. So if Paul has something else, then I guess we're not quite on the same page.
And if they wanted more, they're not getting any more.
If they asked me more, I'd be like, what more do you need to know?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say anything else, but what I would be thinking is that Epiphanies was the Christian holiday. I think it was December 5th. Is that right? The traditional...
January, or did they switch it?
Actually, that makes sense because, Paul, do you still listen to 99 PI?
No.
I don't either, but I just the other day randomly did. And it was about how Slovenia has 3 different like Santa Claus figures, and they come from like the old Orthodox, I think this is right, the Orthodox Christianity or else Catholic. And then the Soviet
Slovenia,
thing,
probably that probably would be Orthodox.
It may have been Catholic, but maybe Orthodox. But then the second one they have is from the Soviets when they were under Yugoslavia and like a communist country. And then thirdly, they also have Santa Claus. And one of them, I believe it's like the indigenous one. Or no, it's the Catholic one, starts on December 5th. Or Orthodox, whichever.
Interesting. I just looked it up. Apparently, Epiphanies is a Christian festival held on January 6th in honor of the coming of the 3 kings to the infant Jesus Christ.
Well, that's why the Christian season of Christmas is officially December 25th through January 6th. So it starts on Christmas Day, and then you have 12 days of Christmas until Epiphany, which honors the wise men coming.
And Christmas Day was selected because it's the darkest day of the year, right? Isn't it the solstice?
No, not quite, but it's like right around there. The solstice is usually like a day or two before, I think. But yeah, that's one of the main reasons it was chosen, is because of the time of the year. And there is some evidence that there may be either the birth of Christ or the coming of the wise men on that day, but that's not confirmed.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, what was the question?
How do you respond when people are like, what about all the pagan stuff in Christmas? And wasn't it originally a pagan holiday? So
Right.
Well, Daniel already had everything there was to say.
No, I was just looking this up. So yeah, the Slovenians say that St. Nicholas comes on December 5th. So I don't know. It must not line up with anybody else, but that's what they do. So anyway, forget it.
Yep. Yeah, I was just telling somebody, like, the reason there's a lot of pagan holidays this time of the year is because of the solstice. Because, like, paganism is very, like, connected to nature and, like, wanting to worship, like, the sun and spirits of the seasons and stuff like that. So in paganism, the main holidays are going to be
nature,
like having to do with the solstices and the equinoxes and stuff like that. And so I'm like, well, just because they worship because of the solstice doesn't mean that we can't also have a celebration at the dark time of the year to represent the coming of Christ. So,
well, and also I think in some ways the same motivation behind spiritualizing those times can be applied to Christianity in the sense of the representation of light coming to darkness and those things like that, as the pagan impulse was to worship the nature itself, our impulse can be to worship the Creator and what he's saying through his creation.
Yeah, that's really good. So you're saying there's actually something meaningful to the ordering of the world and the stars and everything that maybe we shouldn't just dismiss because that's their focus, right?
Yeah, I think that we can observe and appreciate the patterns of God's world without it being idolatrous.
Yes.
And that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's great. I think that can apply to the Christmas holiday as well, in that so many people feel like caught up in the celebration and beauty of Christmas, but then there's that, like, is it going to become about the kind of secular holiday, or are you actually going to participate in the true meaning? I think that even goes into more like modern practices with Christmas.
I think that's an interesting thing, and we'll probably get into this, but I think that's an interesting aspect of really all worshipful or Christian observances, is being sure that we retain the focus on what the purpose is, and it being glorifying God and not just glorifying the trappings and the surrounding stuff.
Yep. Well, with that, let me hit my first. I've got this separated into like major bullet points, my parenting through Christmas handout. So our first major point is Christmas is our holiday. Okay, so then I have we should celebrate. Even though there may be some people who say it's pagan, you shouldn't, or whatever, I think you should. And so I had, if anyone has reason to celebrate, it's Christians. Continue to remind your children that the reason we celebrate is because Jesus has come so that we can know God and have eternal life with him. The world doesn't know Christ, so in their Christmas celebration, there's an emptiness because the true beauty and joy is missing. So that kind of goes along with some of what we're saying, but just encouraging people, like, own the holiday. Make this our holiday, you know?
Yeah, I think that's great. One thing that I love about Christmas, is that general atmosphere and that sense that people will comment upon sometimes, that there's just something in the air. There's like a magic about Christmas. And even though the world really does try to come up with other types of explanations, or just say, it's about caring for one another, peace and love, and comment in for your fellow man and all that, which, is true, but the real reason that happens, and like, why does this happen only at this kind of season, is because I think there is a spiritual objective reality behind it. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. Well said. I don't know. We sometime could talk about some of our memories for Christmas growing up and stuff. I don't have that anywhere in my outline, obviously.
Actually, we led with that on the Halloween thing. Maybe we should
go ahead and do that and then kind of come back to the... Paul, you have any thoughts?
What do you think, Paul?
No, I'm not frozen. I was actually like thinking about how I can transition this to some of our personal stories.
Okay, yeah.
So that's funny.
There's that magic that the world like tries to explain away, just like when I was young.
So before we go through the like handout from church, I wanted us to just have an opportunity to share a little bit about our Christmases growing up. Any specific memories that stand out for you guys with our Christmas times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those will come up naturally as we go through the handout. So let's just go ahead with the handout.
Joel, I think we can handle this a little more organically. You don't have to.
So this is funny. We were having a Christmas party with our small group this past Thursday, and one of the guys just was asking everybody like, "What's one of the greatest gifts? What's your best gift you ever received on a Christmas?" Kind of a classic question, and one of the other guys in our group started his. He was like, "Oh, well, when I was younger, it was Christmas Day, and my dad organized this whole scavenger hunt for me and my two brothers, and it ended with us finding a trampoline. And that was the best Christmas ever, and we played on that for years and years." And I look at Riley, like, wide-eyed. And so then he gets to me. He's like, "What about you, Paul?" And I was like, "Well, when I was growing up, like my dad organized this scavenger hunt with me and my two brothers." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And we did it, and then it ended in us finding a trampoline. And they're like, "Oh, okay, very funny, very funny. Okay, what was actually yours?" I'm like, "No, I'm completely serious. Like me and Drew have the exact same thing happen." So that was crazy. Yeah.
So he had no idea, I guess.
He even wasn't sure if I was being serious. He's like, "Aren't you just really like that actually happened to you too, and you have two brothers?"
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So yeah, that's famously one of our Sigler brothers' best Christmas is the year we got a trampoline.
Yeah, I feel like most people who had a trampoline as a kid, that's probably their favorite thing they had as a kid. Although I will say for me, another very memorable one was the Game Boy. That was like a big thing for me because that was something like I really wanted for a long time.
That was memorable for me too, and I'm not even the one that got the gift.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, Daniel got a Game Boy.
I mean, I think you guys enjoyed it too.
Oh, yeah.
It was so surprising that they actually gave you one.
Yeah, we did not have video games growing up, really. So to get a Game Boy was kind of the first video game that we had in our household. So it was a big deal. Yeah,
Mom was very anti-screens and remains so, I guess. A little less so. Another one, kind of strangely, I don't know why this sticks in my head so much, but our last Christmas in Kentucky before we moved to Alabama, it was at the point where they had already told us we were going to be moving. So we knew we would be leaving Kentucky and going down to Alabama. But at that Christmas, for some reason, they gave us some like simple plastic sleds for sledding. And I remember I was 7, I think. And I remember even at that time thinking, why are they giving this to us now? Like, we're going to leave. This is our last winter here.
We're going to Alabama.
Yeah, we're going to no snow place. Yeah, I guess their mindset was like this is their last winter, so they need to be able to really enjoy it. I don't know, but that just stands out to me. Something they were green. They were just green circles, like basically the lid of that turtle shell sandbox.
I was exactly gonna say that. I was gonna say it's like that turtle shell lid.
Yeah, they're those just simple little discs for sliding on the snow on. But I remember even at 7 thinking it was weird that they were giving us that.
We'll have to ask.
About to move.
I wonder if
this is not a good investment, Mom and Dad.
Maybe they sold it for a profit later.
We'll have to ask.
I think there were multiple times we had little like scavenger hunts at Christmas for different things. That's always a fun thing to do. When we come down on Christmas morning, all the gifts are unwrapped, basically.
Yeah, rather than unwrapped, I might say they were just not wrapped. Well, I guess that's the same thing. But it's not like we walked down and there was a bunch of wrapping paper on the floor around all our There was no wrapping paper.
Yes.
Yeah, Mom and Dad would save us that stuff. They unwrap all the presents before we come in. They just loved doing that.
That was their Christmas. Getting to unwrap our stuff.
Well, we would have wrapped presents under the tree from church members or friends or, extended family.
From each other.
And then all the stuff from quote, quote, Santa Claus was unwrapped on Christmas morning when we came down. So that's how it worked in our house.
Yep. A lot of my friends think it's really funny that we would get like cereal for Christmas.
Oh,
That was a standard. We'd each get like a sweet cereal because we didn't have a lot of sweet cereal in the house.
Oreo.
I feel like that one, at least in my experience, that one's kind of come full circle to where it was like kind of strange and embarrassing that we only would get sugary cereals for Christmas, and now it's come back around to like, oh, cool, you guys were healthy.
That's so true. So true.
Other thing I remember a lot on Christmas Day was we were really into action figures growing up. And so always would get action figures for Christmas.
Yep.
And so most years we would start in like an action figure game like a week or so before Christmas in order to like prepare for the like new arrivals at Christmas.
The new arrivals.
So then we would send some of our action figures like downstairs from our bedroom on this long journey down to the Christmas tree, and they would like hide out around the Christmas tree and
it was the opposite of Toy Story, where the toys are all afraid of the new arrivals.
Right.
Our toys were expectant and excited about who was going to join the party.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other people had those like multi-day games going on where you would have to leave everything paused when you went to sleep and went off to school or wherever you went. And
is that a common
I wonder if
thing?
is that what most people do, or would most people just play and then have to put it in the box again and it's over?
Then getting together with like Sigler family is a big memory of Christmas time growing up, where we would usually get together with our Sigler family and do sword fights at my grandma's house here in Dothan. And those are really good memories. Something I looked forward to during Christmas.
Yeah, and actually we would be sometimes we would be like our action figures in that regard, because we would start a sword battle with the the reinforcements is going to arrive. And so as the different cousins came, they would join the fight.
That's fun.
Yeah, that was a fun thing about being the already there people.
Yeah. And then there was one great year after we got a little bit older where we pretended that we had given up sword fighting.
One of our cousins got there and was so just like depressed when we told him that we were like done sword fighting because we'd grown out of it.
We were into football now.
Yeah.
Like grandma had a football in the storage shed with all the swords that we never touched.
Good Southern boys.
Yeah.
Was it the trampoline year that we all went to grandma's house Christmas Eve night and watched It's a Wonderful Life?
That's right.
I remember not being pleased about that Christmas Eve night activity.
Because mom and dad had to get us out of the house so that they could have people from the church over to help them put up the trampoline. And so we were all sent over to grandma and grandpa's house to watch a movie, and we'd never seen It's a Wonderful Life. And we did not like it.
You have to watch it.
Yeah, we did not like it. We thought it was so boring.
I think it wasn't just that it was boring. It was also like everything's sad and crying and yelling and what are we gonna do and that kind of thing. It's stressful, you know. I finally rewatched it last year, and it's definitely better than I always thought, but that aspect of it still does grate my nerves, grate on me. How do you say that?
It's not great to you.
It's ungrate.
It makes me an ingrate.
I find that grating.
There we go.
Well, and wouldn't you?
But it's a good movie in other regards, but that part of it is very annoying. It's like, do we have to listen to people cry and moan?
Well, and we didn't even talk about the, going to pick out a tree and chop down a tree and dragging it back through the snow. The smell of pine needles in the house.
There was one time where our next door neighbors somehow convinced us to go with them to go cut a tree instead of just like buying one like we usually did. Oh. And this was, I think it was the first or maybe second Christmas after we moved to Alabama, and our next door neighbors were into chopping down a tree, but the place they wanted to take us, or I guess the place they knew, was in Florida.
Whoa.
So it was like, okay, yeah, let's go pick up a tree. In the past, this has been a nice little evening, and now it's like this whole big time investment and long thing going out there, and there's nothing better about it, you know. Maybe if it had been snowy in like a winter wonderland, it would have been cool to go and like.
Did you go? I didn't go, did I?
Frolic in the snow or the trees. I don't know. I was there, but it definitely was like a heck of a lot longer than I expected.
The only time I remember doing that is with the Vances at church, going out and getting a tree for their house.
I remember that too. Yeah.
But we used to have a live tree when we were young. We would just go to Lowe's and pick one out, though. But I thought that was amazing.
I have no memory of that.
Oh.
I remember thinking that was really fun because we would crawl behind all the Christmas trees.
Yeah, the trees would be like stacked towards each other, like kind of leaning against each other, so it would make all these fir tunnels, basically.
That was the best part. Then we found a fake tree.
That was the only good part, really.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that you cared about as a kid.
Then we found like one of the fake trees at like a yard sale, and we were like, Mom and Dad, they've got a tree over here and it's like $40 or whatever, and that'll save us so much money, like we can just reuse it every year. And I remember Mom and Dad especially being like, are you sure, like we're not gonna be able to go pick one out and have a real tree anymore?
Wait, you're like, the one that suggested that?
I think it was me and you, Paul.
What?
Maybe it was just me. You know, gotta be frugal. It's the wise decision.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's how old would you?
Family tradition changed because you were wanting to save money.
Yeah,
I have a somewhat vague memory of putting my vote behind the artificial tree side of things because of just the convenience, and I didn't really think there's much gain from having the tree. It drops the needles everywhere. You have to water it. It's pokey. I don't know. It's sappy. I didn't really see the appeal that much of it. It was something that we always did, but I remember at least voicing my opinion that an artificial tree would be better.
Yeah, saves you money.
We're going to make people mad with that one. That's a contentious issue.
I've thought about getting a real tree some year in the future. Just, I don't know, to see what it's like. You have the smell, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit more novel these days because you don't know anybody who uses a real tree anymore.
My in-laws always get a real tree.
Okay.
It's one of those things that most people have strong opinions about.
Yes.
But man, it is a lot of trouble to have a real tree.
One other one that really sticks in my mind is the first time Daniel was not going to be coming back for Christmas. I think you would have been in Japan the first time.
Yeah.
And that was very strange, being the first year that it wasn't going to be all 5 of us home for Christmas morning.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you see things like change, those kind of things change as you like get married or start having kids. The way it changes like Christmas dynamic so much.
I think it's even it's been a bigger thing for us too, in that I guess all our growing up years, both of our parents never missed visiting their parents for Christmas at least once, you know, kind of at least somewhere around the season. As far as I can remember, we always pretty much saw both the grandparents.
Yeah, that's true.
Living here helped that, obviously, because we didn't have to travel to go see the Sigler grandparents.
Even before going from Kentucky,
it's
the same direction, you know, you can pass through.
Yep. Cool. Good stuff. Christmas is great. All right. Well,
I remember going caroling once or twice
with church people.
Yeah,
we went caroling.
Which is very strange. Like, if you've ever been on the other side where people caroled at you, it's kind of it's very pleasant, but then it's kind of like, what do I do? I just stand here and listen. Like, I wasn't expecting anyone. I didn't prepare like treats to give them, which maybe that's what we should do, is just like, maybe people should get back into the practice of just having treats that they're ready to give out in case anyone drops by. And then if you get carolers, you can be like, oh, I have stuff.
You're supposed to have figgy pudding.
Yeah.
Just on hand all the time.
I think we're all out.
Oh, shoot.
The world is all out, I think, at this point.
Your Mongolian neighbor carolers are not going to be pleased.
Yeah, well, maybe I can tell them some scary ghost stories of Christmases long, long ago.
We went caroling last week with the youth to some nursing homes, and that's the first time we've done that as like an official youth event, and it was great. The students had a really fun time, and I think the people at the nursing home like really loved it, so that was a really good experience.
Yeah.
That's
I think anything any event you can put on at a nursing home is a great thing.
Yeah. So that was fun. All right. Well,
oh, never mind.
What
is Christmas like in Mongolia?
Well, I guess I'll find out soon. So far, there's not a lot to it.
Okay. I mean, does the average person celebrate or do anything? Or
There definitely are decorations around and Christmas trees up and stuff.
Okay. Surely there's some Russian influence with that, right? Christmas is big for them.
Winter is otherwise kind of bleak, so it's nice to have something. From what I hear, it's not a work holiday.
Wow.
Interestingly, in the States, it's, I think, increased as a work holiday thanks to COVID. One of the few benefits of COVID, I think, is a lot of businesses are more okay closing at certain times, or like a lot fewer businesses are open 24/7. And I've noticed
Realizing
a lot more
that you don't have to just be always at it.
Yeah, I think so. And so it seems like there's a lot more businesses that are closed on Christmas this year, at least from what I can tell.
That's
Here,
cool.
I guess the bigger holiday comes a few weeks after, which is where they have Sagantsar, which means white moon, which is basically their like Lunar New Year, and that's like the big holiday where everyone goes back to their parents and does stuff for 2 weeks. So that is a winter holiday too.
Okay.
And in Japan, it was like that too, where New Year's was a lot bigger than Christmas, right?
Yeah, but it was it was the same New Year that everybody has.
Right.
I would say the decorations and observance of Christmas was bigger in Japan, from what I can tell, than here. But they kind of got it all wrong. Like Christmas Eve or Christmas was seen as like a date night, and there's the whole KFC thing, and I don't know. It was just like, it was nice that they had observing it and they put up lights, and that's really pretty. They do a lot of Christmas time light stuff, but some of the more meaningful aspects, I think, were lost.
All right, so I hit number 1, which is this is still under the like Christmas is our holiday bullet, and the next one is teach the why behind the traditions. Okay, teach the why behind the traditions. So any of those that stand out to you guys that you think are important to be keeping in front of us?
I mean, that's another just great church-going family principle that just because you have heard and learned and take it for granted the reasons behind these things doesn't mean that other people are going to understand it. And it's really important that people know the purpose and not just that it's the way it's done. So that's why.
Yeah, repetition is important. It's something I'm valuing more and more the older I get. I feel like as a kid, sometimes you tease your adults like, oh, they always say that thing, or grandpa's always going to do this. He does that every year. But the older you get, the more that's the thing you remember. Like, oh, I'm so thankful that my grandpa always emphasized this each year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of value in repetition when it comes to traditions as well.
This is also just an opportunity for us to point out some of the things that people don't know. So I had just some of the different things that we do and why we do them listed. So it just says, take advantage of all the opportunities to teach your children about Jesus. Nativity scenes are everywhere, which depict Jesus' birth story. We use lights and candles because Jesus is the light of the world. We use evergreen because of the eternal life found in Jesus. We give gifts because the gifts the Magi brought to Jesus and because Jesus is God's gift to us. Stars and angels announce the birth of Jesus. Holly leaves with red berries remind us of the crown of thorns and blood of Christ. The reason he came was to die. So those are the ones I listed.
I never thought about the holly one. That's cool.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what great reminders to continually be bringing your focus back to Christ.
Because those things are everywhere, And again, people like to say, oh, Christmas trees were pagan or whatever. And it's like, well, let's tell our children that like we use evergreen because of Jesus' everlasting life. Like that's one of the reasons the Christians wanted to use those. Some people say the first person to bring one in was Martin Luther, and some people say it's, has some sort of pagan roots, and I don't care because it can be used like redemptively and has that like positive meaning, which is why the church has held on to it.
What about hanging stockings on the mantle?
Actually, I almost included that.
Oh, good. I was just wondering if there's any reason behind that.
It's probably, the legend is that Saint Nicholas threw some coins into a home where there was these like very poor daughters that were probably going to be like destitute because they had no dowry to get married. And so St. Nicholas one night like threw coins in, or like a lump of coins or something, and it landed in the stocking that was hung to dry at the mantle.
Oh, it landed. Okay.
So that's the legend, at least.
I remember I was aware of all of that story except the socks part. stocking.
I thought you were going to say he threw it down the chimney, and then I was like, wait a second, how did it get into the stockings?
No, he just like threw it in the window and it landed in the stocking.
They were so poor they had to burn their socks, and then he threw the money down the chimney. Yeah. So my younger sibling-in-laws, they're basically fluent, but they're still learning some aspects of English. And one of them was talking about supply chain issues and the borders being closed and stuff. And he told me that because of that, the stores, we went to the store and they don't even have Christmas socks. And I was like, what? Like, why do you... Is that like something you buy every year? Like, why do you have to have Christmas socks? That's so weird. And I was thinking, just socks that you wear that say like ho 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 or Christmas trees or something. And then I realized he was trying to say he meant stockings, but he didn't know that word. And stockings are socks. Like, it's not exactly like on the face of it. There's nothing more normal about calling it a stocking, but that's just what we say. And we definitely don't say they're Christmas socks.
Yeah, I don't think of them as socks.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, I do remember one of the two of you putting them on some. It's funny.
Yeah, I like to do that.
Yeah, I thought. The other things I have under this bullet of Christmas is our holiday is to read the Christmas story, which is found in Luke and Matthew, and then to pray together as a family on Christmas.
Luke and Matthew. So which one do you read?
I just said it is found in Luke 1:26 to 2:40 and Matthew 1:18 to 2:3. I
feel like Luke is the traditional one.
Probably more so. It has the shepherds and the Peanuts, recitation from the Peanuts Christmas.
Right.
Is Luke the one where it starts with Quirinius?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say do one of them on Christmas Eve and then do the other one Christmas Day because they're different. Matthew has the wise men.
Did you guys see the Chosen Christmas special?
Yeah.
No.
That was really well done and cool how they have it all focused on presenting the information to Luke so he can write down the events. I thought that was really creative and neat.
Yep.
I need to see that.
It was good.
All right, so the next major bullet point is it's not about the stuff.
Now here we're going to get into differing opinions.
Yeah, that's right. Daniel thinks it is about the stuff, and I don't. So it says, there's stuff everywhere. It's hard for adults not to get caught up in the consumerism of Christmas. How much more of a challenge is it for children? We have to work to keep Christ central rather than the gifts, the decorations, and the events.
Yeah, goes back to intentionality, which is kind of a theme that's arising out of this episode, is how, as a Christian, you really have to be intentional about where your focus is going to be.
I have a few other points on here about like how to do that, how to make it not about the stuff. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
In my adult life, I guess, or at least in recent years, I definitely have been more and more aware of the fact that I don't know many people who really need anything that I would give them as a gift. For one thing, it feels like people don't really have that many material needs. And often when they do, it's like a new dishwasher or something really big that's not going to be what I'm going to give them for a gift for like $20, $30, which definitely makes me think a lot more about trying to come up with something that has more of a purpose than just like, well, I knew I had to give you something, so I spent this much money so I could be sure that I'm not letting down my obligation.
Yeah, I feel like that's more the case. I don't know if it's just a economic change or if it's more of a like mentality change where people just buy stuff that they want instead of waiting for some sort of opportunity to receive it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's probably, I'm sure it's a combination, but it's a cultural shift that probably has ties to people being more financially stable maybe than they were in the past. But I definitely see that most people don't wait until their next birthday or Christmas to get the thing they want. It may be different for kids and every parent is raising their child differently, but for people who have their own income and have the option, it just seems like not many people are still gonna wait 5-6 months.
Yeah, instant gratification is certainly a theme of our culture. We don't have to wait for anything hardly.
Yeah, that's a disturbing reality.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really provide an answer for how you do it. It's just something that's been on my mind when it comes to giving gifts and just feeling like this is so unnecessary,
Yeah.
I would rather make something or like spend time with that person or do something that's more meaningful than just like, okay, I put in my money to feed the companies, or I don't know, like,
Yeah.
not that I'm against the companies, but it just seems so pointless.
I think too, maybe practical options that I've thought of is giving experiences or giving like baked goods. Riley made caramels, which are like take like 2 hours. They're this kind of difficult, unique thing to make, and it's something people appreciate, but it's not an object that now they have to have.
Yeah, that's good.
What are some of the practical points you had there, Joel?
So the first one I had is don't give your kids too much. So it says, as parents, we want the best for our kids, but more doesn't equal best. We know that kids who get everything they want are harder to make happy. Decide as parents what an appropriate amount is. I know some parents who give each child 3 gifts, since that's what Jesus got. I know others who set an appropriate budget of how much to spend on each child. It isn't wise to go into debt for gifts. So first point, don't give your kids too much.
That's good. We talked about that a little bit in the Halloween episode.
Yeah, because of all the stuff, all the
used stuff that's cheap and easy to get.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not uncommon for people to go into debt buying their kids Christmas.
Wow, really? Man.
And it's not helpful to your kids. They're not going to be happier if you just get them like extra stuff that you can't afford.
I'm sure that's hard because as a parent, there is going to be that whole element of they're hearing what the other kids got, and there can be that feeling of, ruining their childhood because you gave them bad Christmases or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Olivia had one, she grew up pretty low income, especially when she was living with her grandparents, and her grandfather was having to go through like chemotherapy. So like all of their money was going through like to medical bills and travel expenses. And there was like one Christmas where she got, I think, mascara and maybe I think one other thing she said that was like small like that. And to her, it was really difficult, to feel like she didn't really get anything meaningful for Christmas as a kid. So
how old was she at that time?
She must have been 10 or 11 or 12, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so not really old enough to be like completely mature about it.
Right. So there's a balance. There's a balance there of doing something that's meaningful and showing the intentionality, especially to your kids, but then not just buying into like, oh, we've got to get them, a million things.
It's interesting too to see that dynamic in families that have a lot of kids, and so that naturally, unless they're very well off, like that naturally presents a limitation on how much each individual can get, which I see a little bit with my in-laws. With my brothers and sisters-in-law, there's somebody's birthday almost every month,
right?
And everyone gets them something, but of course it's got to be smaller because you just can't be doing these large-scale gifts for everybody all the time because it never stops.
Yeah. And there's a lot of evidence that like kids who have to wait for things that they want and have fewer toys like are a lot happier and they're easier to please. So keeping that in mind, I think is helpful as parents, that this is actually for their benefit. It's not just about me being responsible with my money. It's about like doing what's best for my kids.
And I think even as an adult, if you can limit yourself some and hold off on something that you really want or just would, maybe even feel like you have for the sake of convenience, have a mild need for, if it's possible to hold off on that and make people aware and they can maybe pool together and get it for you or something, I think that is something that would be nice for them too, to know that they're actually doing something that you like and is worthwhile.
Yeah. The other 2 points I had on not being about the stuff, Christmas not being about the stuff, is to be thankful and then to be generous. So it says, be thankful. Thankfulness focuses on what we have rather than on what we don't have. It brings contentment and peace and joy. Be vocally thankful and teach your kids to be thankful. And then be generous. Giving and serving are major ways to stay focused at Christmas. Maybe find a place to serve together as a family. Maybe show hospitality to someone in your church who doesn't have a family by inviting them to dinner. How can you show generosity?
That's a great thing about Christmas culturally. The generosity aspect, even, I think it stems mostly from Christians, but that even goes out into the secular world, that people are more generous around Christmas. And that's a great thing. For my work, I do a lot of, because I do video production, there's always end of the year videos for end of the year matches or whatever. And for so many different organizations, the end of the year around Christmas time is a huge time when people are generous. Part of that has to do with taxes, but I think it's also just the magic and significance of Christmas.
There's also lots of opportunities to serve. Obviously, there's like Operation Christmas Child stuff you can help with. There's Salvation Army. There's often lots of ministries that are working through the Christmas time. And going as a family to serve with those things, I think can really help your family stay focused on what matters.
That'd be cool.
I think that aspect about hospitality is something that I really agree with and want to learn more. I don't think it's something that was a big part of our tradition, really. I think a lot of times when you come from strong, stable families, where even the extended family has good relationships, maybe it can be harder to make time or fit in people who are outside of that orbit. But I just really feel for people who don't have that and think that it's such a valuable time that doesn't really cost you much to share it with other people, and to try to be a little more open and not too like closed off till this is our special family time. And you can still have those special family, closed off times without having to just not participate in the hospitality aspect of it.
Yeah, that's great.
If that makes sense. Is that a little ambiguous? I just think there's a lot of people, and especially having spent some time at churches where I was just a single guy with really hardly any connections, and just knowing that there's people who don't really have families, who don't really have much to do, and Christmas is just sort of one of those times where they're not really sure what they should be doing. They don't want to be in people's way, but I think everyone should have someone to be with on those kind of days.
Yeah. I definitely have memories of having some people over on Christmas Day or like sometime around Christmas for dinners and stuff. And I always really enjoyed that. Now I'm like a huge like people person, so I'm like more people the better almost. So some of that's my personality, but I think it's really just good for kids to see others in the church coming in to your family gatherings. Because I mean, it's totally biblical. We can get into this whole topic, but it's totally biblical that the church family is your primary family. And this concept that like, oh, my blood family is who gets this time reserved for, that is not really the Christian mentality. Like Christian mentality should be of who my closest family is in the church. And so if there's people who don't have people to be with, like you're saying, Daniel, it's our obligation, I think, to include them. Even
if they do have relations to be with, for a lot of them, that's not going to be as meaningful, as edifying, as uplifting, and in the Christmas spirit as it would be to be with their church family and fellow believers, brothers and sisters in Christ, who can really join with them in a worshipful mindset towards the holiday.
Yeah. The last major bullet point is, what about Santa?
What about Santa?
What about Santa?
All right. So if we have any young listeners here,
good.
Do we actually need to say something? No, we don't need to say anything.
I don't think we have any young listeners.
Kids, your parents are lying to you. Kids, your parents are lying to you. Don't listen.
You can't trust it.
They're trying to turn off the podcast now, but I'm telling you the truth. Don't let them shut us off.
Worst disclaimer ever.
Okay, so it says similar to what I had in the Halloween one, actually, is how it starts, is that there isn't one right answer when it comes to how to handle Santa. Some families are convicted not to involve him at all, while others believe it's harmless and fun. These differing opinions are legitimate, and here's some of our opinions.
Did you have to have some kind of like concerns over spoilers for this handout?
No.
Okay.
You mean like if the kids see it and they're like, what?
Exactly. There might be some upset parent.
Well, I'm not worried about that.
No.
So, we all grew up with not believing in Santa. Our parents did not tell us that Santa was real. So that's where we're coming from. I remember
what a heartbreak it was when they told us that we weren't going to believe in Santa.
So we don't have the experience of growing up, like having the belief in Santa and then like being able to weigh in from that perspective.
Unraveling the mystery.
Yes.
My wife does, though. I could call her in here. Right.
All right, we're going to get a new friend of the podcast.
Hey, is she even here?
All right, well, if we get Riley in, we'll...
She's not even home. I think she went to the farm.
Oh.
I know a lot of people who have grown up that way, like, feel like they're glad about it. Like, it was so fun, and when they found out that Santa wasn't real, they didn't feel like their world was crashing down or anything like that. And they're like, oh, it was still so fun, so much magic and stuff surrounding Santa, so I think it's good to do or whatever.
Uh-huh.
That's not our experience.
Right.
So your wife, Paul, you said?
Yeah, so they did Santa Claus, and the main thing that I remember is how it all came crashing down. And that is one year her mom forgot to give Riley's older brother Trace a gift. And so she decided, like, well, I'll kind of rough up the package and make it look like it fell off the sleigh, when he was coming up the chimney. So she took it outside and was like throwing it around the yard and stuff. And Trace was watching from the basement window. So then she was like, look what I found outside by the chimney. And then, he put two and two together and promptly told Riley and her younger sister that Santa wasn't real.
How old was he at the time?
I don't remember.
Yeah, the younger siblings, they get it usually from the older siblings.
Right.
That's funny.
But she had a fairly positive experience with it overall.
Don't you think that says something about, the siblings' desire to keep each other in the know and not just like, okay, I'm going to leave them in the dark because they're my younger sibling? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't mean anything.
I think it does. I think there's something to that. Now, there may be the negative side of that is like wanting to like...
shatter.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. But I think it's more just natural to want to tell.
Yeah.
But then on the other end, there's some Christians who are like, you shouldn't have Santa in your house during Christmas. Like, that is not good because it takes away from Jesus and it's the secular icon and that kind of thing. I think we definitely kind of grew up in the middle of those things. Like, we did not feel like that.
Yeah, Mom's pretty against Santa.
Yeah, Mom is. Okay, I bought some stamps the other day for her and some of them had Santa on it. She was like, well, I don't want to use Santa stamps. I was like, what?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess I was not aware of that, but now that you say it, it kind of makes sense.
I think I'm with her on that, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think I feel somewhat negative towards Santa.
Oh.
For example, I just got some socks on Thursday, some Christmas socks, not stockings, but Christmas socks at our Thursday Christmas party. And Riley was like, those Christmas socks are kind of cool. She was like, yeah, they do have Santa on them. You probably don't want them. I was like, yeah, I don't care about them. Anyway, it's not like a strong thing. It's just, I prefer things that have to do with Jesus, or even like reindeer or trees or like wintry things.
I mean, Father Christmas shows up in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah,
That's
well,
Christian.
I don't read that book anymore.
For that reason?
For that reason.
Okay, I definitely don't feel anti-Santa. Anti-Santa.
Yeah.
I don't feel anti-Santa, but I mean, I agree that he shouldn't be getting the glory, or he gets the credit for the presents that parents buy.
You say that now,
fair, but
after I've come out against him.
I mean, no, I don't think I have no problem with Santa imagery. I think it's a fun, it's like any other magical thing. It's kind of fun. Magical creature, legends and folklore, I think are nice. I like. I especially am interested in Santas that break the Coca-Cola mold. Like I remember the stocking I had for Grandma Sigler's house. It was a tall, skinny Santa, and I liked that.
Uh-huh.
And then one of the other stockings, he was like dressed in blue, and then David had that one where he had like a crown of holly, which would kind of hurt, but and he was like dancing in the snow, and he looked like this more kind of
like, pagan deity.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, pretty much. I was thinking kind of like Bacchus, but no, not like that.
I think he shows up in Narnia too.
Bacchus does?
Or one of those like wine gods.
Yeah. Okay.
That's true.
I don't remember that at all.
Prince Caspian, I think, on his donkey drinking wine.
Anyway, I mean, I think there's some charm to the figure, but yeah, I'm definitely not into like all the Christmas movies where the greatest possible virtue is belief and fealty to Santa Claus.
Yeah, no kidding.
That is a strange thing.
So what I had on the handout is trying to kind of go in between those two extremes. Is first that Santa isn't evil. It says, we think that Santa can be included in Christmas activities in a healthy, fun way. He's based off St. Nicholas, who was a Christian who became known for secretly giving gifts to poor and oppressed people. So I don't know. I really feel kind of bad for St. Nicholas, up in heaven, being like, on the one hand, people are like worshiping me in my memory. And on the other hand, Christians being like, curse St. Nicholas. Like, no, he was solid. He was a great, great Christian guy.
But that kind of brings up an interesting thing, which is where, the Catholics venerate a lot of the saints, and because of our tradition having turned against all that, we've lost touch a little bit with some of those things that I think would be a worthy and fun annual observance and thing to remember and come up with other celebrations for, not only for Christmas and Valentine's, I guess would be the other one people know about, but
St. Patrick's Day.
I think it would be nice to have other unique and thematic celebrations throughout the year. And especially if we can remember people for their service to Christ, I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, Santa isn't evil, and the next one says deception is unhealthy. It's not godly to lie to your kids, or anyone else for that matter. Even if the lie is fun, we must prioritize building trust with our children.
Wow, so you were pretty clear on your stance on it, not really.
Yeah, and I was unsure how the children's minister and the nursery director would feel if they felt like that was too strong, but they both felt really good about it. Wow, so I was like, all right, well, I do too. And I always, a lot of Christians say well, you shouldn't tell your kids about Santa because once they found out that you lied about Santa, they might think that you lied about Jesus. And I'm like, I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is because lying is sinful. And building trust with your kids is so important. That's one of the most important things as parents is to provide security and let your kids know that they can trust you. And to me, that's the important component. I think that I don't know. I just don't think that it's as, personally, I don't think this is as gray as we make it out to be. I really just don't think I don't see a justification to lie to your kids. So that's me taking my strong opinion.
I think that phrasing of it is a bit of a straw man, though. I don't think that people are out there thinking everything my parents tell me must be a lie, therefore. But I do think, and this would be helpful to hear from more people who have the background like Riley, but I do think that having that significant developmental experience of this nice fantasy that I believed in and that everyone said was true wasn't, and the real world is actually just cold hard facts. I think that is a formative experience that people can see a parallel with in God, and not that they think therefore my parents are tricking me about God or that someone's tricking me, but I think it can easily be seen as all those creatures, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, all of that was just something that is just fairy tales. But there's this one that people haven't been able to shake. And maybe it's just because it's the most unfalsifiable one, because it's an all-powerful being that's not exactly in our dimension or, not on the physical plane. But basically it's the same coping mechanism that people are looking to give some structure and purpose to their meaningless lives. I think there is a very logical parallel to that. And I think people saying that there's no connection at all, I don't agree with that. I can understand that it can be harmless, and maybe it usually is or almost always is, but I think it is a natural parallel to draw.
Yeah, that's a good point. Almost that just disillusionment, the whole disillusionment mentality.
Yeah, I think rather than it being therefore my parents were lying about it, I think it's kind of therefore my parents or whoever are the people who aren't willing to admit the truth that there's no Santa Claus and there's no God. It's kind of...
Well, and it's the parallel of there's a coming of age in realizing that the stuff that I believed was just fairy tale.
Yes.
And the mature, now that I'm grown and mature, I don't need that stuff, Yeah,
I think that's a very strong formative experience for people, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. You sold me.
I'm not saying that therefore no one should. I just think that I don't think that potential risks should just be thrown out.
Yep.
And dismissed as silly.
Yeah, that's good. I just don't see a justification for lying to your kids. And that's what it is. Like, people who are like, well, it's not really lying, or, well, it's worth it, or whatever. It's like, how do you justify that? Like, from a Christian perspective.
People justify lying all the time, though.
Yeah?
Even Christians. I mean, I think people's personal truth-telling...
Joel. Get with it.
I guess I'm just behind the times.
People's personal truth-telling ethic varies greatly in the extent that they're willing to lie. Like, it's not a black or white thing. There's a wide array of where people land on that. Even things like not being completely honest about an upcoming surprise, so that way you're able to...
I was just about to ask about that. Like, what do you think about the desire to surprise someone?
Me?
No, Paul can keep going.
Oh.
Not usual.
No, I think that's great. I think you're right. The justification...
Not usual. Not usual. Stop. Sorry. Okay.
Well...
One of you carry on.
So yeah, that, and then when you talk about truth-telling in general, you get into situations like World War II Germany, hiding Jews. Do you have any Jews in the house? How do you answer that? You know, you get into those questions about, like, how strictly are you going to...
Right. Hey, you would lie about Jews being in your house, so tell your kids about Santa.
There we go. Glad we got that solved.
No, I hear you though.
Well, I think that's a different topic for a different time, but I'm not convinced that I would lie about that.
I agree that is
tricky.
Is too much
tricky
to cover.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's tricky. I do think so. The argument would be, if there's a greater good, right, then lying can be justifiable. If there's like a higher moral duty or a greater good, then lying can be justifiable. That's the argument. Which, again, we're not going to maybe cover that right now. So then you would have to argue that the greater good of providing wonder and joy and excitement and fun for your kids is a greater good than being honest about Santa, right? That would have to be the argument.
Correct.
So,
well, I think one thing that has to be addressed about that wonder and the fun and whimsy of this whole Santa myth is the fact that it does have to end at some point, and is that I think it really depends on the age of the kid and the circumstances. And we guess need to survey people or get some feedback, but is that never traumatizing or hurtful, hard experience? Is that, I mean, I feel like that's gotta be.
Well, and going back to the idea of when you maybe keep things hidden to surprise somebody with a big gift or something, that doesn't have that aspect you're talking about where it has to end, or there's like a part where it all comes crashing down. You're able to give them the gift or to surprise them.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
that is a big difference between those two things. You know, I think the other thing too is we talked about not making it about the gifts and commercialization and all that, but focusing on the meaning. There's so much wonder that you can get from the true story of Jesus' birth. So maybe focusing on the magic and wonder and amazement of the fact that God became man.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. When you appeal to those, like the traditions and the joy and the wonder of the season, then it's even greater.
Yeah.
For our Harvest Family Christmas this year, Dad gave a little devotional about just the wonder of Christmas as a child, and how, like, as a child, you know, Christmas trees are like, you know, 4 times your size, and just how like amazing everything is. But as Christians, there's a greater wonder than even what children experience at Christmas. And that's what we all have to look forward to, is this like unending wonder and excitement and joy that God has in store for us. And it's not something that's less, you know, than what kids experience. It's something that's greater.
Amen.
Yeah, I definitely feel that with Christmas carols and the meaning behind all those lyrics. It's definitely, you know, something as a kid you don't care about too much, but that really like impacts me with the really awesome beauty of Christmas.
Yeah. These last 2 points I have here about Santa is pretending is fun. So after, you know, saying deception is unhealthy, then I have pretending is fun. Okay, learn to use one simple word correctly. Pretend. Jesus is pretend. I mean, sorry. Santa is pretend. Yeah, there you go. That's the issue, right? No. Use the simple word correctly. Pretend. Santa is pretend. Jesus is not pretend. Kids don't have to be told that Mickey is real to love the magic and fun of Disney. They can enjoy the excitement and fun of Santa without being told that he's real. Imagination is awesome, and it's a wonderful part of childhood.
Wait, Mickey's not real?
Joel.
Yeah, let's add that disclaimer. And then the last one is talk about Jesus all year long. And then in quotes from one of the articles, if the only time a family talks about Jesus is when he's sharing the bill with Santa, Jesus will lose. End quotes. Then Jesus must be a central focus of our families all year long, not just around Christmas or at church.
Good.
So that's how I round out the section. That's the end of the handout. But I think this concept of why do we have to tell them it's real to enjoy some of that magic and fun, even of Santa, if you're going to include Santa? Can't you just pretend? And kids love that. I mean, the excitement of like taking my kids to Disney and them seeing the characters is awesome. And I have never told them that those characters are real. And I'm never going to tell them that those characters are real. It's just like still an exciting thing.
But you also don't tell him, oh, that's a man or probably a woman inside of a costume, right?
Yeah, but I think that there's definitely a difference in the way that parents tend to treat Mickey Mouse and Santa. I don't see any.
He doesn't come to your house.
Yeah, nobody's like making footprints of Mickey Mouse around their house or like acting like it's real. It's something that we all understand is a character and that's fun. And hey, they're like even when we go to the mall, hey, there's Santa, is what I told Malachi, and then I can still say like if he asks me about it or Santa's pretend or whatever. And with Mickey,
don't you think there are some parents who are like, here's the real Mickey, here he is, this is where he really lives, and we're gonna meet him for real?
Probably so. And they're sinning. Just kidding.
I think that's what you're supposed to. I think that's what the parks intend for you to do.
Just for it to be the real Mickey.
I don't know, maybe not.
I've never heard of any kids having their fantasy of Mickey shattered when they realize that he's not real.
Yeah. When they stood in line for 2 hours, and then it was that one time we're visiting him where they're like, that's not him.
So there's something different, obviously, that there's not that moment of truth.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Anyway, there we go. That's the handout. And
that was the last point.
That was the last point. The last point is about talking about Jesus all year long.
What about not giving presents to bad kids?
That was actually in one of the articles. It talked about just like don't use Santa to manipulate your children, and I didn't include that in my handout, but I think that's a great point. People using this like lie to try to manipulate their children to be good. People do that not just with Santa. People lie about things to try to get their kids to do what they want to do, and that I think is just really dangerous as parents.
Yeah, I mean, even for a pragmatic reason, that it's not always going to work.
Right. When we're teaching our kids to behave, it needs to be for the right reasons. We're not just telling them, oh, don't go to the neighbor's yard because you'll get bit by a snake or something. That's not true. Like, tell them the real reason. Like, you come back because I'm your parent and you must obey me. And so whatever that like manipulation is to like get your kids to behave is not good.
Good.
All right.
Any final thoughts? Anything that we should end on?
I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And last Christmas, Yejin and I were kind of exiled. We were in between countries and separated from both of our families.
Right.
And she did a great job of coming up with ways to really get into the spirit and feel like we were not missing out on Christmas and having like the full experience of it. And so it's really nice if you can plan out to do some activities specifically like for that purpose of getting yourself in the Christmas spirit. And I would recommend anyone who is so inclined to listen to the entirety of Handel's Messiah during the season. Not in one sitting necessarily, or you can have it in the background, but man, that was very Christmas spirity to me last year.
That's cool.
Yeah, again, I just say like we should own the holiday and enjoy celebrating what Jesus has done and really participate in the wonder and the joy and generosity and all that as Christians. Not just because it's the Christmassy thing to do, but because of like what Christ has done.
Yeah, and if anyone hasn't watched the new Chosen Christmas episode, could be a great thing to do like on Christmas Eve or something. And then of course you should read the story from Luke and or Matthew.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Oh gosh. My professor on Thursday said have a happy and holy Christmas, and I liked that, so I'll say that now. I hope everyone has a happy and holy Christmas. Okay, I'll actually stop recording now.
That means you're left with me, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Daniel's After Show, where we discuss the highs and lows of the podcast.
Call it the one.
I thought Joel was really on point this time, but I thought it was a bit of a shocker that Paul's as anti-Santa as he came out as being. That was quite a revelation. And you heard it here first. His own flesh and blood was not aware of that stance, and we're all growing and adjusting our positions, learning about one another. So, what will we find out next week or next episode? Tune in and find out.